Welcome to the Triple S podcast. Today we discuss the moves being made now during the NFL offseason, and we look forward to the NFL draft, which is less than a month away. First, we have to talk about the two big moves made by the New York Giants, which kept two of their best offensive weapons in Daniel Jones and Saquon Barkley in town. I think that tagging Barkley was the right move here. It was the only move that they could have really done, especially once they got the deal with Daniel Jones. He probably won't play under the tag. They're probably going to try to re-sign him earlier because the offer that was reported to be given out by the Giants was around $13 million a year, which is more than the $10 million a year that Saquon will be making under the tag. So I think that he'll want to be able to renegotiate this deal, and the Giants want to keep him around for a while. But I think the more interesting move is Daniel Jones re-signing for 4 years and $130 million, which puts him in the upper half of the highest paid quarterbacks in the league. He did very well last season, I think, with not that much help around him, and they made the playoffs for the first time in a while. So it makes sense that they would want to keep him around. Last season, he was the sixth best quarterback in terms of QBR and had the second best turnover ratio. However, I think he's still really unproven as he just broke out last season. So I think that the wiser move and the move that I expected them to make was to franchise tag him and then to let Barkley walk, because this way they could have made Jones prove himself one more year before giving him a big deal, and they could have cut ties with Barkley, who probably will leave after this season if he plays under the franchise tag. The other big move is Lamar Jackson getting franchise tagged. Obviously, this was expected as he clearly wants out of Baltimore, so they weren't able to uh, re-sign on a deal. However, it is a non-exclusive tag, which means that other teams can go and sign him. Teams just have to send 2 first-round picks to the Ravens, or the Ravens could match that offer. And I think that this really opens the door for the Ravens because there's some great moves that the Ravens can make. I found two really plausible. The first one is the Raiders, which have the cap space to sign Lamar. Alongside the draft capital, they have the 7th overall pick. And they're a really talented team outside of the quarterback position. They have Josh Jacobs, Devontae Adams, Darren Waller, Hunter Renfrow. So I think that the best option here is to get Lamar Jackson in town rather than spending a draft pick on an unproven quarterback such as Will Levis or Anthony Richardson. And I think that it would work great for the Ravens because they would be able to get the 7th overall pick and the Raiders pick next year. So I also, which is similar to another deal that they could make with the Atlanta Falcons. The fit here for Lamar is great at Atlanta because he could work with an offense that allows him to run and move out of the pocket. Uh, Marcus Mariota did this a lot last season, and that's why they found limited success. And on the Ravens side, they could do a lot with that 8th pick, as well as they could do a lot with the 7th pick. They could go for a quarterback such as a Will Levis or an Anthony Richardson to really restart their franchise with a new quarterback. Or they could bulk out their receiving core with somebody like Quinn Johnson. They could look for a veteran quarterback as well, somebody like Jimmy G or Teddy Bridgewater that could save them a couple years as they rebuild and as they reload for another championship run. Moving on now to what I think is the worst deal that happened so far this offseason, which is Derek Carr signing with the New Orleans Saints. This makes Derek Carr the 10th highest paid quarterback in the league with an $140 million deal. He's definitely not a top 10 quarterback, and while he improves the Saints right now, obviously he's an improvement over Jameis Winston. It sort of leaves them in an in between that I don't think is very healthy because I think he's too good of a quarterback for New Orleans to tank, but he's not good enough for them to go far in the playoffs. So while this gives them the short term goal of winning the division, I don't think they have a chance of getting anywhere past the divisional round anytime soon. And it really limits their cap space. They're the team with the 5th least cap space now, and they have the 29th pick in the draft, which means they can't really make a lot of noise in the first round. So I have a hard time seeing them improve outside of the quarterback position. And Derek Carr's already getting older. So I think that this really just gives way too much money to an older quarterback that isn't going to be a franchise quarterback for a lot longer. Speaking of the draft, and speaking of some really quarterbacks that could be generational changes, I have my top 10 mock draft right now. think that the Chicago Bears will trade back, and I think they'll trade back to the 4 spot so that way Indianapolis could take the first pick, where they could take that first pick and draft C.J. Stroud. I think that C.J. Stroud is the best quarterback in the draft right now. He's a quarterback that is, I think, even more proven than Bryce Young. And I know that Bryce Young won the Heisman, but C.J. Stroud has been putting up the stats. He's a more polished passer. He's obviously got the height and the physical attributes more than Bryce Young. However, I do think that Bryce Young is still a really good quarterback, and that's why I have the Houston Texans picking him second. With the third overall pick, I have the Arizona Cardinals picking Will Anderson. Obviously, Will Anderson is somebody who is a beast in college, and he'd be good for any team. But for Arizona, who doesn't really need a quarterback, but they do need somebody to replace J.J. Watt, who unexpectedly retired last season, I think that Will Anderson is a great fit. At number 4, I think the Chicago Bears should take Jalen Carter, who, even though he's had his off-the-field problems, I think he's the best overall player right now that in the draft, besides maybe Will Anderson. Number 5, I have the Seattle Seahawks taking the quarterback Devon Witherspoon. I think that he would really add a lot of talent to that end, and I think that he's somebody who could be this year's Sauce Gardner at that cornerback position and could really bulk up that Seattle defense. At number 6, I have another defensive back going off the board at Christian Gonzalez, who's from Oregon, going to the Detroit Lions. Detroit really needs a cornerback right now, and I don't really see them taking a quarterback because even though Jared Goff hasn't really been the best quarterback as of late, I don't think they have the time or the patience to afford to draft a Will Levis or an Anthony Richardson. Unlike the number 7 pick, the Las Vegas Raiders, who, if they don't get Lamar Jackson, like I just mentioned, they could get him, but I think that another pick that they could go here is Anthony Richardson. This is similar to the Atlanta Falcons, who I also said is really plausible that they could get Lamar. I think that one of these two teams will get Lamar. So whichever one does, obviously wouldn't pick a quarterback. So I think that either at 7 or at 8, they would pick Anthony Richardson, who just had a crazy day at the combine, measured crazy in the 40-yard dash, broad jump. He apparently did very well talking to coaches and passing at the NFL Combine. So I think that he really jumped ahead of Will Levis. I don't think he jumps ahead, though, as some people have been saying, ahead of Bryce Young or C.J. Stroud, who are much more proven and are just as good as Anthony Richardson physically. So at number 8, I have the Atlanta Falcons taking Tyree Wilson, who is a DN that they really need out there in Atlanta. At number 9, I have the Carolina Panthers taking Will Levis, because at number 9, they can't really jump forward in the draft. I don't think that they can trade up to number 1 or number 2, and this is the best quarterback there, and they really need a quarterback. So I think they have to take Will Levis. I'm not super excited about Will Levis here, but I think that he does really have a chance to, with some time, grow into a franchise quarterback. I just don't know if Carolina will give him that time, or any team that'll take him. And at number 10, I have Quentin Johnson from TCU going to Philadelphia, and I think that he'll really help Jalen Hurts as Jalen Hurts continues to mature. They just made the Super Bowl, but they still need some more help on that wide receiver side, and I think that Quentin Johnson is a plug-and-play player. I think that he's ready to go year one, and I think that he's a player that you could see in conversation to be an offensive rookie of the year next year. Those are my top 10 picks for the NFL draft. And that's all I have for today. I'm excited to see the draft, and I'm excited to see whatever other moves will be made in the NFL, which I'm sure to talk about in later episodes. Thank you.